creates opportunity for leadership from underrepresented groups. So as a person of color, the truth is like when we enter heavily dominated groups, like let's say by white people, there's this disconnection because you're not familiar with it and you're like, you don't want to talk. So it's very hard for someone of color to like talk in a very white dominated community. But if a community manager creates opportunity for leadership in terms of like getting someone of color to like help you plan an event, even being the panel list, because that's something I always do. I always try and make my panel guests diverse, like someone from Asia, someone from India, someone from Africa, someone from United States, because knowledge is vast and you get to have different perspectives on a particular topic.
Hey everyone, I'm Joel Premack, host of the Community-Led Growth Show. Today I'm joined by Jeph Abu, Product and Community Manager at AhoyConnect. Thanks so much for being on the show today, Jeph.
Thank you so much for having me, Joel. It's a pleasure being here as well.
Of course. Well, to give everyone a quick intro about yourself, please take the next 30 seconds or so to do so.
Yeah, I feel like I've answered this question like multiple times. So it's the same thing. So my name is Jeph Abu. Everyone calls me Jeph. I've been a community manager for about 5 years plus. So I started off as a front-end developer, became a social media manager, went to cybersecurity, and now I'm a community manager, like my one true love. So aside from that, I'm passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the community space. I also give like public talks and workshops on DEI in community building. And yeah, I've written a couple of books, not to sound very modest, but yeah, a couple of books here and there. And I like food. That's just me as well.
Nice. Do you have a favorite cuisine?
Hot dogs, and I think tacos as well. I love tacos.
Okay, good to know. You just mentioned this a second ago in your intro, so I'm just going to dive right into it. Why are you so passionate about bringing diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, DEIB, into the community space?
Okay, awesome. So it's being an advocate of DEI and B, it's like you constantly have to prove like why, and that's very like stressful and very like draining because DEI should not be you need to, it's a necessity. So being a community manager in Nigeria, I realized that there were not a lot of opportunities, strictly because of my location and strictly because the community industry is heavily dominated by people in the US and by a specific gender. And there are actually reports to back this by some industries and by some agencies. So I started applying for jobs and I noticed it was the same. I'm sorry to inform you. And I'm like, wait, am I the only one that is experiencing this? Then I did like a full crusade on why are they not hiring community managers in Nigeria? Then I realized that people don't even know there are community managers in Nigeria. Like I always give a quick fact that we have over 4,000 community managers in Nigeria. Like you can just check LinkedIn and you see like a full list. I couldn't even go to the end. But in that list, you see only like 5 or 6 people that have global roles. So I noticed that there was a big disconnect. Then I wanted to reach out to community managers that are like me, that are not so technical, but like they work for like, whether it's startups or like fintech companies. Then I realized there was no one in Nigeria. Then I'm like, this is something I can do. So I went on a crusade actually saying like diversity, equity, and inclusion advocates for people, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa. And like you should give people a chance regardless of where they are from. So it has been a journey actually educating people of what diversity actually means, not as a one spectrum. For example, in Nigeria, diversity is about tradition and culture. But in the US, it cuts across race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, religion. In China, it also cuts across religion, culture. So diversity is not just one spectrum. Is a full spectrum, and it says like include everyone regardless of their identity and like give everyone a sense of belonging. And I feel as a community manager, that's literally what you do in your community. Like create that sense of belonging, make everyone feel like they belong and they feel among. So it became a crusade, if I may say, like just talking about diversity. And I realized people don't actually know. And I'm like, okay, well, it's time to educate people. And here we are 1 year later, I'm still talking about the same topic. So yeah, that's just my full explanation.
No, I think that that's really interesting to hear because it just like opens up so many like thoughts and possibilities for people to improve and like really examine how they run their organization, where they get talent from, how they make it like an equitable process, no matter location. So I think that that's really thought provoking in terms of like just that total experience, really. Um, I would say that now I'm really curious. You just mentioned how you're really passionate about helping people create like a good inclusive environment for their members in a community. So I guess what are some tactical tips that you've either executed yourself or seen other communities do that you think do a good job of creating a healthy space with DEIB in mind?
Yeah, I would like to first start by saying like DI is not a marketing strategy. It should be your company, it should be in your company's DNA. So when a lot of brands say, for example, during the George Floyd case in the US, a lot of brands were advocating for Black Lives Matter. Like they changed their Instagram to like show Black Lives. But after a while, they realized that it was just a cheap marketing tactics. You have very racial or very racist companies actually like using these tags, and it became like you could see through it like it was transparent. So I'll say the first thing that DEI is not like a marketing tactic. It's not like something you can just do, because if you do it the wrong way, you might get so much backlash. So I'll say the first step is come with a blank state, and like blank state in terms of like, I don't know anything. So how do I know? Like, so I always, someone told me this, I don't know should not be um the end of a conversation. It should be the beginning. So I don't know, question mark, what do you do next? So that I'll say in terms of community building, your community guidelines matter a lot. Like in terms of like, what do you do in your community? Like how are community members held accountable? Like, is there inclusive language? Are there like platforms to like report harassment? Is there a specific channel that you can reach to get feedback? So these things are part of like your community guidelines. And when it's well detailed, I think Bloom does an awesome community guideline and they stand on DI. They say, okay, everyone is accepted regardless of their race identity. If you do certain things, you'll be held accountable in terms of like maybe suspended or expelled. So a lot of companies or a lot of communities have guidelines, but there's no repercussion. So you might see a full guideline, but there's like what's next after if someone breaks a rule, like would the person be suspended, person be expelled, like those kind of things. Then I'll say the second one is like create opportunity for leadership from underrepresented groups. So as a person of color, the truth is like when we enter heavily dominated groups, like let's say by white people, there's this disconnection because you're not familiar with it and you're like, you don't want to talk. So it's very hard for someone of color to like talk in a very white dominated community. But if a community manager creates opportunity for leadership in terms of like getting someone of color to like help you plan an event, even being the panel list, because that's something I always do. I always try and make my panel guests diverse, like someone from Asia, someone from India, someone from Africa, someone from United States, because knowledge is vast and you get to have different perspectives on a particular topic. Because if you bring people from US, they'll probably still align on the same conversation. But if I bring someone from Africa, bring someone from India, bring someone from Asia, there's going to be a different perspective in it. And I'll say the last one is like celebrating wins or celebrating people that are underrepresented when they do certain things. So most likely you always have wins by most active members, but your sub members in terms of people of color usually don't come out. So you can celebrate their little wins like, hey, this person got married. Hey, this person did this in a community. These are some like tactics you can use. Then in terms of community events, you can also have events targeted towards a particular sub race. And I'll say it's good to always plan with the audience you're working with. So if you want to do an event for African Americans, get an African American person in your community to help out, because you don't know. Like there are some things that might be said in Nigeria that they don't mean anything, but when you say it in US, they mean a lot. So actually plan with your community members that you want the event for in terms of like African American, in terms of Asian. I think India did permit me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. I think it was Dawi or Dawali or something. So they had a festival that they did called Dawali, and it's a big festival in India. Like they literally don't go to work. They have a lot of celebrations. So you can actually highlight holidays like this and like wish your community members like that Indians like happy Diwali also. Yeah, so these are just some tactics you can use.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And now I guess I'd really love to hear from you. Like, you just talked about like why you're passionate about DIB in the community space. You now just shared how community professionals can like do tactical things like to help create inclusive spaces for members of all backgrounds. Now I'm curious, like, what your thoughts are on the benefits or value of being mindful throughout your community building journey that DIB plays in creating like a great community.
Yeah, I'll say the first thing is you get diverse opinions. So diverse opinions is you get like a global view of what you're doing. So I feel like every community manager still wants like a global community. Like you want people from different parts of the world in your community. Like that's if it's not private. So you get to learn like diverse opinions. Like, hey, you might put an image out, and one person might say, okay, it's fine for me in America. But me, I might say that, oh, this is a bit offensive for people in Africa, or this is a bit offensive for people in Asia. So the first advantage or the first benefit is like a diverse opinion. Like you get different views on different ideologies. And I'll say the second one is you create a sense of belonging in your community where people feel safe enough to share. Because one thing about community is that people tend to share a lot in terms of like how they are feeling, and like they see it as a safe home. So you create that sense of belonging when everyone can say, okay, I see you, I hear you, and you can actually have a conversation with me and talk to your community members without having that backlash or without feeling like they won't understand you. I'll say the third one is it just brings up different work ethics or different programs and events based on different regions. So that's it falls back to like different ideologies. You get to plan different things. You also get to learn, like cultural exchange is something that is very big in community. Like I've spoken to some community managers and I get to learn, okay, so this is how it feels like being a community manager in India. You have your holiday, like you have holidays in US. Like I'm sure we just learned now that there are 4,000 community managers in Nigeria. And if we didn't have this conversation, you probably would not know. So there's a cultural exchange. There's like a relay of information, like bi-directional between your community members. And this sort of makes people know more. And it can be conversation starters. Like I'm sure if you meet in Nigeria now, you can be like, hey, I met Jeph. And I didn't know there were 4,000 community managers in Nigeria. So it's a cultural exchange as well. So those are some like benefits. Well, I'll say the biggest one is like it creates a sense of belonging, creates a safe space where people can share their ideas.
I love those. Thank you so much for sharing that. And now from there, we're going to kind of pivot a little bit in our conversation and go into, you mentioned this at the top of our conversation, and I just kind of wanted to like learn more about your experience being a community professional who isn't based in Europe or North America. Like, what's it been like for you?
That's a very good question. I would, I'm looking for a word. Like, I think the word is epic. I think that's what I'm going to use because it's like I feel like most people that are African American, most people from Africa can relate. Like you sort of have to do times two of your counterparts, especially in like the US, especially as a community manager in Nigeria. I know how hard it is getting a job. So I literally have to do times three, like put in more work, put in more effort, just based on the fact that I'm from Nigeria. So it's like having conversations like this sort of make people think that, hey, there are talented community managers in Nigeria, not just community managers, but talented people. And if you give them a chance, you definitely like get your money's worth. So it wasn't so easy transitioning because I think the first thing I had to do was learn what community management was, because in Nigeria, we have our own view of community management, but I can't take those views to a company in US. So I had to learn, what does community management mean to this company? What does community management mean in a broader view? And that was the first step I made, like educating myself by checking out resources, going to like blogs, being part of course. And it made me have a broader view that, okay, you can have community management as a career is broad. You can have like community operations, community content, community events. So I learned so much. Then I'm like, okay, what next? Like with the knowledge I've gathered, how do I have a name for myself? And I think having a name for myself is advocating for rights. Like I tied my career to a goal or to a cause. So everything I do is like, okay, how do I help community managers in Nigeria who don't have this opportunity? So I'm in the spotlight. So my plan is like actually like bringing more people up. Like, hey, we have talented folks there. But I'll say it's not easy transitioning. And I feel like most Africans face this problem, like getting a job, especially. You have to do times five. You have to like put in so much work. And sometimes it might not even be enough. Sometimes it doesn't mean you're not good enough. It just means you're not like the right person for the job. You might be the best person, but it might not be the right person. So it's like it's a constant, like, what's the word? Like keep going, like it's constant. I keep have to go. Like everybody keeps have to like going till you get to like the top of your career. But I'll say epic because it wasn't bad, it wasn't good. If I didn't have this like friction, I wouldn't have to push harder. So yeah, I think that's just my career so far.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it's really helpful and insightful to hear like what your experience has been like. And kind of going off of that, what ways do you believe like the community profession overall can improve to become more inclusive and have a greater focus on DIB?
Awesome. I'll say the first thing is your team. That's one thing that is, and your community members. Like most community managers don't think about how do people get access to their community. So the first step is maybe if you want like to do your community events as a global community input, you have it on like Meet or Zoom or like other platforms. But in Africa, we are more mobile than we have like laptops. Like everyone literally has a phone. So access is something that if you don't have a platform that is easily accessible by phone, most Africans won't relate. But there's the ideology of, okay, we have a global perspective, but global just means US for some people, which is quite funny. So it's like how you think about it, like have questions with yourself. Like, how do community members get access to my community? Like, is it through LinkedIn? Is it through like word of mouth? And it will make you think that, okay, maybe we're not really global because we're just putting it in people's faces in the US. And like, how do we do that? And that thing is that like I've seen happen is workshops. So people actually have workshops for certain like community members. And most of these workshops, they are always like the same people, like the same set of people, like one white male, one white female, one white male, one white female. So it's like it makes you think that, hey, so I don't know like other people of color that are actually like good in community management. So you can actually change your panelists. Like there are so many community managers out there that are very talented and not just in the US. So actually have a broader perspective when you're planning events. Don't just plan for what you think will be an awesome event. Plan around like a global perspective in terms of like, how do I plan an event that even someone in Australia or if someone in Nigeria, if it comes to my event, he will feel like, okay, there's a space for me. And I think that's just some things you can do as well to like gather like or have that sense of belonging in your community.
I think that that's really helpful. And now I'm just really curious for a second. You mentioned specifically that like people in Nigeria and Africa tend to be more mobile friendly versus like laptop or desktop heavy in terms of their like internet access. And you specifically called this out in relation to virtual events. So from your perspective, do you think that there are like better platforms for communities to host events on that create like a good experience for people who are also using their mobile device instead of a laptop or a desktop computer?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I've entered events where like I couldn't understand the platform because it was built for basically people in the US. So Zoom is one of the platforms that is used in Africa and it's used very well. Like people use it on their phone. It's very easy to just enter a Zoom link and like be there. So people use it a lot, even during COVID. But some other tools, like I don't know if you know Butter and Co. Like using this tool was a new experience for me. Like I've gotten some complaints from community managers in Nigeria that I don't understand. Even platforms like Discord, the learning curve is quite like high to learn it in Africa. So if you are having a global community, that is already like a obstacle because people coming to Discord might not really understand. But Slack, Telegram, these are tools that community platforms that are used. I think Telegram and Slack are used a lot in like Nigeria and Africa. But like I said, mobile. So you have to have that ideology. Not everyone has access to like a laptop. And it makes you think because you're not really exposed and you don't really know that, okay, it's not everyone that has access to a laptop or good internet, but almost everyone has access to a smartphone in Africa.
Yeah, no, that's definitely helpful. And I just wanted to get your like thoughts on it. So thank you so much for sharing that with all of us today. To wrap the conversation up, I'm really curious, like what three community trends you're most excited for in 2023 and beyond within the B2B SaaS space?
Awesome. I'll say the first thing is feedback from your closest lost lead. So I said closest lost leads because not all leads will lead to like acquisition or sales. So you actually have leads that you thought you were almost there, but they're like, okay, you know what? Like we'll just not do it for now. So I think getting feedback from this quality of people to understand what happened is something that people don't do because they're usually discouraged and they're like, I gave it my all and at the end of the day, it didn't do. But actually getting feedback from your closest lost lead can enable you to know, okay, where as a B2B company did we go wrong or what did we do that this company didn't want to like use our product or use our enterprise software. And I'll say the second one is a lot of automation in terms of like marketing intelligence too. So the thing with market or martech is that it is real time, like sending out newsletter, doing ads. So I see a lot of automation and some automated tools being used to do like manual work because you have to save time. So I see a lot of automation, people like using tools in terms of like automating, sending out some basic things. And like, yeah, now say the last one in terms of the what I see should be a lot of customer experience being a very key factor. Like, yeah, we have customer success managers, but I feel like customer experience in terms of like from onboarding to even offboarding is something I would like to see. Like people actually focusing on it more in terms of trends and in terms of like not just generic customer like feedback or generic customer like onboarding. So yeah, I think these are the three things I see like actually like pulling off in 2023.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing those today. And Jeph, again, thank you so much for being on the Community-Led Growth Show today. If people want to follow or connect with you, what are their best channels and or handles for them to use?
Awesome. So I'll say my first channel is LinkedIn. That's my most active social media platform. So you can actually send me a connection request or follow me on LinkedIn on Jeph Abu. So Jeph is JEPHTAH space ABU. That's Jeph Abu. Or you can follow me on Twitter at Jeph_A_. So Jeph_A_ is JEPHTAH capital letter A_. And yeah, if you have any question around DEI or just want to like go through any strategy you have around DEI in your community, you can always send me a request or a message and I'll definitely answer when I get to it.
Amazing. Thank you so much and have a great day, Jeph.
Thank you so much, Joel. This was awesome.